So a long time ago, 10 years ago now, when a guy named Roger Ebert was still alive, he said something that pissed a lot of gamers off. He outright declared that video games could never be art. A lot of people around my age now dismissed him as like a crotchety old man who's out of touch, who didn't have anything to say, and who was just floundering about. But I've taken the liberty of reading what he wrote about this, and while like I agree in principle that maybe it doesn't have a lot of merit, um, I think he was more reasonable than people give him credit for, and there's something to be said for reading the thoughts of maybe someone a little out of touch, but someone who was still pretty reasonable in my opinion. Um, so basically, the gist of what Roger Ebert was saying all those years ago was, well, he usually had two main premises about games being or not being art. Um, the first one being that one that a lot of smart people that may have discredited, that the interactivity of video games, the lack of control that the creator has over the audience when you compare it to other mediums, um, that does not equal art. There's too many experiences um, so that the audience shapes it more than the creator. And I think that's pretty silly. You can look at like plenty of things in a museum, paintings that change depending on how far away you are from them. A whole lot of other things I'm sure I don't know about, but like the, modern art has seen lots of interactivity. And I think that argument has been given less and less credit over time. Now, the second thing Roger Ebert said is something that's really stuck with me ever since I read it, and that's the idea that as much as gamers are concerned with this discussion that video games are legitimate, video games belong in the same discussion as movies and literature. Um, you know, Generally games aren't all that concerned with being artistic, and there's this you know more philosophical idea that your life is short, you should be doing fun, lovely, artistic things with it. And what do games have to do with art? When you're shooting people, when you're using special attacks against people, when you're hitting people, you know, why aren't sports art? Why aren't board games art? What makes video games special? And while I disagree with that vehemently, um, when I've tried to get my parents into games, or I've tried to get older friends into games, into the games I like, I find it really hard to break this notion. And I think in general, maybe there was a little bit of merit to what Roger was saying. Maybe maybe most games choose to do very little, and that's what I want to talk about on this channel. Now, starting off the bat with Roger Ebert makes it sound like I haven't really been paying attention at all, because I know there's a whole community of people interested in analyzing games as an artistic medium, and I think they're often interesting. But I think the problem is so much of it is from a game design perspective. So much of it is from the mindset of like people who want to be making games themselves, and I think that's really cool. I think the crossover between the creator and the audience that you see in video games is really unique and cool. But I don't think it should be everything. I think there should be much more discussion about storytelling, about themes, about all that good stuff you see in other mediums. And I think there's still this, I want to call this snobbery, but I you know, every time I see like a really successful interactive game that someone likes, I feel like it's always prefaced with like, I don't usually like this kind of game, but, and I think that's just kind of sad. Um, I think there has to be more discussion about that kind of game. And I think I'm unironically taking the position that purists mocked like 5 or 6 years ago. That that walking simulators and the Telltale type games and like text-based adventures, maybe those always did have some merit. Maybe those were always the kinds of games that were concerned with doing something artistic. And that's the kind of thing I want to talk about on this channel. I won't pretend there aren't any channels interested in doing the kind of thing I'm talking about. I've seen a few, but there's no way to say this without sounding like incredibly pretentious, and I'm sure I already do. But I think oftentimes they're not selective enough about the games that they talk about. I find it's either way too lore dumpy, like here's what happened over this entire series, or it's an in-depth analysis of Uncharted or something. I think there's space for people to talk about maybe the more niche games that interest them, and not always catering to the maximum amount of people. For a while I envisioned this as more of a let's play project. I would start a game from scratch, and we would talk about the storytelling, we'd talk about the thematic aspects while I live streamed it, and that could be fun, and I still want to do that. But I think what I really aim to do with this channel is I want to talk about the themes and storytelling of games, and develop a thesis in real time while I'm doing a let's play for people to watch. And once we're through with that let's play, I can make a video essay about the game based on the things we've talked about during the let's play. I like this idea that I can work collaboratively with people I don't even know to build something like this. And yeah, I haven't really seen anything like this done, and in some sense I don't feel like I'm the best person to do it, because I'm not terribly charismatic, and sometimes it can take me a while to write things, but I'm in my heart I really feel like there's a void for this kind of content. I feel like there'd be people interested in it if someone made it, and I'm gonna try to be the person who does it. So yeah, here we go. As for the name, Story Rich Studio, I just think it's funny that Steam just stamps that onto certain games. Like this is a story rich game. Beware. I don't know. It's funny. So it's kind of gonna be in the same fashion that I just decide, this game is artistically relevant. This game is brilliant. So yeah. This is my channel. Here we go.